Hey everybody! I want to start this video with a little inspirational message from Doug, my dog. You've got an essay due this week, but I know that you can do it well. I know that you've been working hard on your research, and you should definitely reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. In this video, I just want to go over with you some of the basics of the assignment just to make sure it's all fresh in your mind, just like I would do if we were on campus. I would do this in the class period before the essay is due. So let's take a look at the requirements. So what I'm showing you on the screen is the assignment that you read probably a couple of weeks ago the first time. This is the last couple of pages. The assignment for this is exactly the same as the assignment for the first exploratory paper. It's just that now you're doing a different research question, so you're getting more practice using research tools. So please read this over more carefully on your own if you haven't, and you should have by now, right? So just real quickly, remember that the first requirement is that you're providing informed and thoughtful information about a debate surrounding your question. You are not simply taking one side. You're going to give equal time writing an informative paper about the two opposing sides or two different ways of looking at your research question. Okay? Use material from at least 3 written sources that are credible for college level research and appropriate for your research question. This is why one of the reasons I've had you do the source analysis worksheet, so you get practice at evaluating your sources carefully. Remember, the sources you use in the paper don't have to match the sources that you did the source analysis worksheets on. Remember too that at least one source needs to be located through OneSearch. Remember that one of the course objectives is to show that you can do more than just Google. Remember that the way that I know that you've used the library databases is that in your works cited list, you will include the name of the database in your citation. More on that later. Remember to introduce and synthesize information, show connections between sources, use multiple sources in 1 or 2 of your paragraphs, perhaps. The other video I've made this week talks about ways to do this. And it also talks about the next requirement, integrating quotations and paraphrase effectively, smoothly introducing them, and then citing them correctly. You know about that by now too. As I've alluded to, you'll have a works cited list that matches your in-text citations. Remember, that's required for this essay, so I won't read papers that don't have them. I'm not going to be super picky about formatting again, although in the other video this week, I gave you some basic pointers to get a good start. Some of you already know how to do the works cited list perfectly well. Again, the most important thing is that it directly corresponds with the in-text citations in your essay. Remember the English 101 stuff. Remember that you should have solid organization. It should be a reader-friendly flow to your paper so we can follow your train of thought. You should have at least 5 or 6 well-constructed paragraphs, depending, of course, on how many points that you have to make. And then proofread so that your sentences are clear. Remember that the minimum length requirement is 900 words, not counting the works cited list. So that's about 3 pages. The deadline, I've already told you, I have extended until Wednesday the 7th. And here are the instructions for submitting on D2L. Please read over these other reminders as well, but I just really want to emphasize this first reminder. You're trying to be an objective reporter here. You're not taking a side. If you've done this well, I shouldn't be able to tell what side you're on. Not yet. In the second half of the semester, that's when we'll work on persuasive writing. All right, the rubric here is almost exactly identical to the first rubric. I think there might be more specific wording in these first 2 categories, but otherwise it's the same as before. By now you should have read the feedback that I provided on your first essay. So you've seen how I put a lot of comments in your essay in the margins itself, and I fill out the rubric. I often throw in some comments in the rubric, and I make final comments at the end. If you have any questions about what any of my comments mean in your first essay, always make sure to follow up with me about that. Okay, so there's the assignment. You've already read this sample, and you should have already seen my short video about this sample. So I just want to again point out a couple of really good things about this sample. We've got an introduction that lays out the debate here. We've got a nice You don't have to use a personal story if you don't want to, but this writer does, as a hook, as a way to engage the reader. And then this writer lays out what the debate is about homework. Now, depending upon your topic, you might want to also use your introduction to give us information that readers don't really know. In this example, everybody knows what homework is, right? But if you're dealing with a specific piece of legislation or something that you think readers need background on, if you need to define terms, you can use your intro for that too. You might remember that the highlighting in this paper is of everything that comes from a source. You don't do that in your paper. That's just for teaching purposes. So notice how some of what's highlighted is summary of the source and some of it is direct quotation. Notice how in every paragraph, most of the words belong to the writer. Quotations are kept limited so that they don't overtake the writer's voice. Okay? Now, when I talk about putting sources in conversation, one way to do this is to cite multiple sources who are making similar points, right? In this paragraph that I've talked about before, this writer is using multiple sources to help explain a very similar point. Okay, so the dominating organizational structure in your paper should be the specific points you want to make rather than summarizing one source at a time. Okay, here's another example of where she's using multiple sources. And again, a lot of what's highlighted here is her summary of this, because if all of this were direct quotation, that would be way too much. I also like how she follows up her paragraphs by bringing us back to her main point. I call these return sentences. Really nice transitions. So this is a very reader-friendly paper. It's very easy to follow her argument. Okay, and then the works cited list directly corresponds to each source that she cites in her paper. Cooper is cited in the paper, Graham is cited in the paper, and Maltese. And notice how reader-friendly this is. So if I want to know more about this Graham source, I can find it easily in the works cited list because the sources are listed alphabetically, starting with the last name of the author. Okay. One other thing, where did I just see this? Quoted in. Remember here, when she is quoting Denise Pope, we don't know who, Pope isn't going to be on her works cited list, right? Because she found that in Graham. So she uses quoted in Graham to signal to us where to find this on her works cited list. So she's giving credit to the source of the quotation, and she's also letting us know which of her sources contained this information. By the way, this is also a really good way to make your source look good. When you know that they have some sort of outstanding credential like this, integrate it into your sentence and make your source look good. When your sources look good, you look good. Okay? Make sure you watch the other video this week. I hope that you enjoy the writing process. The last piece of advice that I have for you is not to wait until the last minute to write a draft. I know we like to tell ourselves, I know that I got through college by telling myself that I write best under pressure, and that isn't necessarily true. If you really write best under pressure, then maybe early this week you should set a timer for an hour and see how much of a draft you can write in that time, and then set it aside and come back to it a day later and develop it, proofread it, edit it. You do better work when you revisit your work and you're able to clarify things and expand on things with your reader in mind. Okay? As always, reach out to me with any questions that you have. You can set up another virtual appointment. You can email me. You can email Bill, set up an appointment with him. We want you to do well on this paper and feel good about your work. I'll talk to you in our discussions and in our emails, and I'm looking forward to reading your essays.